We now go to the gentlewoman from Indiana, Ms. Houchin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the ranking member. Thanks, Director Chopra, for your testimony and being here on this long day. Since you were last here a few months ago, the CFPB has continued to put forward what I view as politically motivated rules that go beyond your statutory authority. Despite my colleagues and I making our concerns known to you at the last hearing, I still frequently hear from constituents about the lack of input on rulemaking, the failure to tailor regulations towards smaller institutions, and an almost impossible to navigate landscape that comes from CFPB's continued regulation by press release. It's beyond concerning. We're going to continue to push on these issues. So to my questions, Director Chopra, my colleagues and I have previously made our concerns known to you about the continued pattern of regulation by press release, and when that fails, regulation by enforcement. With one of my colleagues earlier in this hearing, you said that the Bureau has, quote, tried to articulate guidance through the various laws that we've enforced. How is a business supposed to know what guidance exists if they aren't made aware of any wrongdoing until the CFPB alleges misconduct has occurred and forces a business to pay a fine?
Well, I don't think that's the case. I think that we try our best, and based on feedback from many industry groups, including the Consumer Bankers Association, to be able to publish information that answers questions about how to comply.
I'm glad you mentioned the Consumer Bankers Association. They recently reached out to me on Dodd-Frank Section 1034C, and the advisory opinion that was recently published by the Bureau. They're concerned about that it's difficult to understand, it's vague, and that there is what is the scope of it and what isn't. It's a significant policy. Stakeholders are required to comply with this within 2 months. And I understand that the Consumer Bankers Association recently reached out to request a meeting with CFPB staff, but the CFPB rejected their meeting request. Why would your staff reject a meeting with an important stakeholder like the CBA, and will you ensure this is corrected so that industry stakeholders can engage with you and get a deeper understanding of what is required of the AO?
Well, you actually raised such a good example. Congress passed that part of the statute. That is law.
My question is,
law of the land. If I could finish,
the question
instead
is,
of just bringing an enforcement action.
You're not answering my question respectfully. Why would your staff refuse a meeting with the CBA, and will you ensure it's corrected so these stakeholders can engage with you to get an understanding of what is
I'm happy to look into that and make sure that we're.
So is it, will you, yes, ensure that you'll meet with the CBA?
Well, I think our staff meets with associations all the time, but I will check into that for you.
Will you commit that your staff will meet with the CBA?
Sure. I mean,
Great.
We'll have someone meet.
Thank you.
They have meetings with us regularly.
Perfect. And so I want to go back to just this regulating by press release. Under what authority does the CFPB governing by press release, and why is it not clearly declaring rules and going through the appropriate regulatory and administrative processes such as the APA?
Well, we are complying with the APA, and if you want to share more detail about regulation by press release, I don't even actually know what that term means. We put out regulations through the regulatory process. We've received feedback that we should publish important developments, and so yes, we do post information on our website.
Until a rule is made final, then any announcements you have made to the fact are not enforceable.
No, the regulation and the statute is what governs it.
Great.
The press releases are there to say we're collecting comment. We've published this guidance. We've issued this report.
So you're not making enforcements based on rules that have not been promulgated 100%.
Well, we would not win those in court.
But are you? The question is not would you win them in court? Is are you making enforcement?
I don't. If you have a specific example of that, I'm happy to discuss it with you. But we are attempting to issue the guidance in response often to industry questions. This is a program that Director Kraninger, my predecessor, started that we've continued. So I'm happy to address real concerns wherever they emerge.
So do you agree with the well-established principle that if an action is establishing a new obligation on covered entities, it must go through the notice and comment rulemaking process in order to be enforceable?
Well, so the statute often creates the obligations. We often issue guidance to say, this is really how we intend to supervise for it. It's for transparency. I'm trying to also react to You're saying that there's regulation by enforcement. We're doing all these things to help avoid that.
I just want to know if you're, and happy
We are
to talk to
complying
you.
with the administrative procedure.
Happy to
Gentlewoman-
talk to you about this.
Gentlewoman's
further.
time has
Appreciate it.
expired. Gentlewoman's time has expired.